Hi everybody, Debbie here with Garden Style. So today we're going to talk about grasses. They are the most obvious plant that you probably see around you at this time of the year that are blooming. And there are so many different varieties, but I'm going to keep it down to 3 or 4 today that I know have done very well in my own garden and will do well in yours as well. Um, Before we get started here, just to let you know that we had a couple 2 or 3 days where it was pretty cloudy, we got a little bit of rain, and the nights are getting cooler. So there's some definite signs that fall is not far away. And I know at this time of the year, a lot of you are probably just tired of watering, just tired of it. And I get it, I am too. But I have found, especially over the last few days, even with overcast skies, I can back off the watering a little bit, get some more trimming done, do some other things in the garden besides trying to keep things hydrated. I know most of the country currently has had one of the hottest summers they have seen in a long time. Not only hot, but just dry. For us here in the Northwest, we have actually had record dryness this summer. We really haven't seen any significant rain since, I don't know, the first week of May. And that's highly unusual for us. This is just an especially dry summer. So we're all praying for some sort of substantial rain. But the other day we got a pretty good downpour, basically a sprinkle, to dampen things down if nothing else, and of course cut down on the fire hazard. That's my biggest fear, is fire in our area, because we are at extremely dry conditions right now. But you give it about 2 or 3 weeks and I can guarantee you that's about to change. Usually does for us here in the Northwest. By October we're starting to see it on a regular basis. Let's hope. So anyway, let me get started with grasses. First of all, grasses are probably one of the most versatile, if I can talk this morning, versatile plants that you can use in your garden as well as in containers. And I like them because they're primarily perennial. The grasses I'll be talking about today are definitely perennial, so they'll come back year after year. Super easy to take care of, extremely drought tolerant, and they're fantastic for erosion control on hillsides, filling up those containers and just bringing that kind of fall type feel to your containers at this time of the year. And just great in drought tolerant areas. They pair really well with flowers like echinacea, Penicetum, and so many other dry loving type flowers when you're putting them out in the garden. And overall, I trim mine once a year. For the most part, for most of my grasses here, I will trim them in the very early spring as soon as I start to see some new growth emerging in the center of the grasses. And for most of my varieties, I will cut them down to about 5 to 6 inches above the ground, and then they will come back and just start flourishing again the following year. I let mine die back on themselves in the fall. I don't go through cutting them all back unless you just can't stand the messiness. Sometimes I do. I'll jump the gun and start cleaning them up and cutting them back in the fall just because I don't want them flying all over the yard, like their blades and stuff starting to fly all over the yard once they die back. But overall, I just try to leave them alone and not do anything to them until the spring, if you can stand it. So anyway, of course, grasses come in all kinds of heights, colors, shapes, sizes. And this very first one that I'm going to talk about is called Burgundy Bunny, and you can see its inflorescences. You see what this is right here? That's actually its flower, and that's where all the seeds are going to come from once they dry out. Now, of course, these are fantastic in dried arrangements. You can cut them and use them for that. But I like them out in the garden simply because when the wind blows, they add movement to the yard, of course, a new texture in the yard, and you got to mass them out in order to get the real full effect with grasses, especially those that have the little plumes on them like these do. So this very first one I'm talking about is called Burgundy Bunny, and you can kind of see where its leaves have a little bit of burgundy mixed in there. That's just going to become more and more red as we get into fall and we start to experience cooler temperatures. But I like this grass because it's short. So it's something you can use in the front of the garden. This is a very hardy grass. It grows down to zone 5 or minus 20 degrees. And of course, its exposure is full on sun. You can let it get dry between waterings. In fact, it prefers that. So here in the Northwest, when you go to plant grasses like this, you want to make sure they have really good drainage. So they don't need a lot of compost when you go to plant them. But do make sure that you have a little bit of sand and a little bit of a gritty mixture going in with them. Unless your soil's that way already, then you can probably just plant them directly in there. But grasses just don't require a whole lot of fertilizing and a whole lot of TLC once they get established. So of course, keep them well watered. At this time of the year, that shouldn't be an issue as we get closer to October. But this one stays nice and short. It'll only get about 18 inches high. Its little plumes here may get a little bit taller than that, but the actual clump of grass itself stays pretty short at 18 inches. This will die back during the winter time, and that's okay. In the spring, you just clean them out, cut them back, and they will come back and look amazing. Aren't they cute? But Little Bunny is the name of this one, and it is a part of the Penicetum family. It's a huge family of grasses, and I'll be covering a few of those today. So there you go. That is your first one. And then I have this guy. Now these you're probably seeing all over the place with these huge plumes on them. They're just real soft, and this one is just loaded with them, as you can see right here. Isn't it fantastic? And this is called Penicetum Ginger Love. And these have, as you can see on some of these, kind of a deep burgundy plume on them, kind of a burgundy color. They do lighten up as the grasses start to get older, and they'll kind of turn silver. But this is another one that doesn't get super tall. In fact, it only gets maybe 25 to 36 inches high, and that's considered short in the grass department, especially as I start to talk about a few others that we have here. Another one that's a part of the Pennisetum family, they also call it a fountain grass, just because it just has this natural kind of fountain shape to it with these gorgeous, beautiful plumes on there. And that will certainly make a statement in a container or out in the garden. And mass them out, at least 3 to 5 to 7 if you have the room for it, and of course a bright sunny area. Now this is also hardy down to zone 5. Of course takes full sun, gets about 36 inches high, and this would be a fantastic grass on a slope as well. So if you're looking for some erosion control or something on a slope that you don't want to have to continually maintain, this is a real good variety to go with. And they're cute too. They just look cool at this time of the year. Okay, the next one I'm going to talk about is called Karley Rose, and you can see that the plumes on these are a little more delicate, but they're super soft, and there's a bazillion of them. I'm trying to get it all to fit here in the camera. Let me scoot a couple of these back to give you an idea. But this is a little bit taller grass. You can see it's here in the pot. Trying to give you an idea of what they look like. It's really hard when you have such a teeny screen that you're trying to fit these into. But anyway, this is called Karley Rose, and that just means that the plumes on this one are more of a rose color as opposed to a dark burgundy. As they age, they start to become a little more silver, but they're just amazing out in the garden. This one, I think, gets just about as high as the last one. Nope, gets a little bit taller. This will get about 3 to 4 feet high. So we're making the gradual climb here when it comes to grasses. But all 3 of these that I've just discussed with you are fantastic in containers as well as out in the yard. But this one, a little bit taller, it's hardy down to zone 6 or minus 10 degrees. And of course, full on sun, really good drainage. And you can tell on this one that he's experienced some dryness. So when they're done pluming and doing their thing, if you can't handle this, go ahead. You can cut it back to about this tall above the ground, and it'll come right back the following spring. But some of these can be a little messier than others, and that's just me. Don't know if you can tolerate that out in the yard or not. I usually go out there and grab a pair of scissors and just cut them back. But that's another one that's also a part of the Pennisetum family, is Pennisetum Karley Rose, or Oriental fountain grass, whatever you want to call it. They're all just super pretty and certainly get you in the mood for fall when you start to see them blooming like that. Okay, I have one more here that I want to introduce you to, and that's this one. And this is actually in the Carex family. Now, there's a portion of the Carex family that is evergreen. So this is a type of grass that won't die back. It actually holds its green all the way through the wintertime. And there's a series of Carex grasses, the Ever series, they call them, and they have all kinds of names for them, just depends on the varieties here. This one just happens to be Carex Evergold, but there's also Everillo, there's Everest, couple others that have the Ever in front of them. But if you're out looking for Carex grasses, just look for the Evergold, Everillo, Everest, anything with Ever in the name, and you'll know it's actually Evergreen, and it's going to hold its color all throughout the wintertime. Now, I love these for containers because the blades get long, and they'll actually start to drape over the edges, which is really pretty. It helps to soften the containers a little bit. And I also like them because they are super low maintenance. Now in the springtime, when they've gotten pretty beat up during the wintertime, I grab them like this, just like I would a ponytail full of hair, kind of like that right there, and you hack them back to about here. Don't be afraid, because they will come right back and get nice and full and really pretty, like what you see here. But these are great on the edges of borders, in a container. They're just fantastic. Of course, erosion control on a hillside, along a rock wall, if you can just let them hang over the rock walls, because these will get long or longer as the grass itself starts to get bigger. And of course, most of their growth happens from the center on out. So yeah, they're just, I really started to like grasses just for that reason. But let me tell you some more about it here. This just happens to be Carex Evergold. Another neat thing I like about these is they are deer resistant. You don't see a whole lot of deer walking up to these chewing on them. Let's see. So this one is hardy down to zone 5, minus 20 degrees. And this particular variety will only get about 12 inches high. It doesn't get the plumes on it like what I just showed you in the other grasses. But the other grasses are also considered herbaceous or deciduous, however you want to look at it. So the other ones I showed you will die back, but this one will actually hold its green all throughout the wintertime, which is kind of a bonus. And just super easy to maintain once they're established. And of course, it will take full sun as well. Really good drainage. I just can't say that enough. Do not put a whole lot of compost in with them. They don't need it. You don't need to fertilize them a whole lot. In fact, I don't fertilize mine at all once they've gone in the ground. They get plenty of nutrients out of the soil, unlike your lawn, which is you're constantly having to feed it because it is also a grass. These particular grasses, not so much. Where you see them growing in their native habitat, you'll see clumps of them because that's how they actually reproduce themselves. As their clumps get bigger and bigger, and eventually after, you know, the second or third year you've had them in the ground, you can dig them up and actually divide these. In fact, I could probably divide this one out of its pot. I would pull it out and I would literally just cut it in half, and you could take the two halves and spread them out. So super easy to propagate and make more of, you know, if you want to later on in the future. But yeah, I just can't say enough about them. They're low maintenance. They're fantastic for rock gardens. Any place where it's hot and dry, they will do very well. Just keep them watered, of course, for the first year so the roots can get in and get established. And after that, you trim them once a year and done. Super easy to maintain. Okay, so there's a quick blurb on grasses, things you can start thinking about, start adding to your fall containers. I've already started emptying out containers of really tired annuals, things that just got fried in some super high heat that we had a few weeks ago. And let's face it, they've been watered over and over again. I've tried feeding them. They're just worn out. They're tired. So combine these things with echinaceas, things you can find during the fall time, rudbeckias, of course, mums, pansies, Dusty Miller, sedums, succulents, all of those things combine really well with grasses. So there you go. Kind of went through the full sun series of grasses. You can certainly get them for shade as well. Highly recommend you look them up. One of my favorite shade grasses is Japanese forest grass. You can also get some really cool varieties like a Karl Forester grass, which has become more and more popular out in the gardens because it gets tall, it stays slender, it's very structural. People have used them for screening plants, and of course I'll flash some pictures up there so you can get an idea what those look like and how to use them. And don't be afraid to put just grasses in your containers. You have 2 or 3 containers filled with just grasses. There are so many neat things you can do with them to decorate the porch, put them out on the deck, and they'll still look fantastic just because they hold their own. I have several pots of just grass in them, and they look great. Yeah, you just make a trio of pots if you want to, and just have all grass in one of them. So I hope that opens you up to some new ideas and some new things to do. It's time to get busy again out in the garden as our days are getting shorter and shorter. I have just been busy trimming, just trying to keep things neat and clean, and of course prepping containers. Going to be planting some of these, of course, along with some mums. Asters is another thing I want to talk about, and hopefully I can cover those in my next video. What a fantastic thing to combine with grasses in a container are asters. Maybe some heucheras and some creeping jenny. Just lots of ideas for you guys. Okay, of course, if you have any questions or comments, you can leave those in the description box down below this video. And if you would like to get a hold of our newsletter, which I send out once or twice a month, you can go to sunnycrestnursery.com and sign up for that. Or you can send an email to gardenstylenwest@gmail.com. Alrighty, here we go. I'm starting to gear up for fall, and I cannot wait. Little side note, I actually leave at the end of this week to go pick up Mom, my 87-year-old mother who has lived by herself in Nebraska for far too long, and she kind of had a rough winter last winter. So my brother and I are going to take a flight. We're going to go pick up Mom. We're going to drive her back in her car. Yes, Mom will be in the car. And bring her back home with us. So maybe I can introduce you to her a little later on when I'm doing some more videos for you guys. And honestly, it's my mom who gave me the gardening bug to begin with. She is the one who got me started in this whole gardening dream that I live in. So definitely want to introduce you to her. All right, you guys. Looking forward to fall. The kids are back in school. It's time to get back into some structure, a little more routine. And of course, start prepping our gardens for Old Man Winter, who will be here before we know it. Take care, you guys, and I hope to talk to you soon. Bye for now.